Hello and welcome to the Bikes or Death podcast. My name is Patrick and I am so happy that you're here. When I collaborated with Louis Sador on my last episode, he does something kind of cool at the beginning of his podcast where he thanks his Patreons that signed up for that week. And I thought that was a great idea. And so I'm going to copy him. This week's new patrons are Gordon M, Kathy D, Shannon O, Tony B, Ash W, Chad B, and Jason B. Just want to give a shout out to those and every other Patreon and everyone out there that supports the show. I couldn't do it without y'all. If you want to support the show, please head over to bikesfordeath.com, and pretty much the whole thing is an advertisement for Bikes for Death. Surprising, I know. It's a revolutionary website stuff going on here. And as always, if you can take a moment and head over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review, that's actually the best. It helps a ton. I appreciate it, and it helps other people find out about the show so that they can enjoy this super awesome content just like you are right about now. All right, this week's guest is Cinthia Pedraza. I met up with her in Austin, Texas. We met outside at a little park, and it was a great chat. I appreciate her so much coming on the episode because what we're talking about today is not necessarily the easiest conversation to have. She wrote an article that was published on the Radavist entitled Bike Racing, White Privilege, and the Coronavirus. Now, if you are a triggered person, that title might trigger you. But I would encourage you to listen to this episode with an open mind and understand that what is really valuable and what is needed so desperately at this time in our society is conversations. We need to be able to talk to people. We need to be able to listen to people and understand where they're coming from. And we need to be open-minded to different perspectives and point of views and life experiences and all those things. And so while you may not agree with everything that she or I has to say, I hope that you will focus on the fact that the most important thing we could be doing is having hard conversations. I said in my Black Lives Matter podcast that I put out a few episodes ago that I would not let the fear of making a mistake or saying the wrong thing prevent me from seeking to do the right thing. And I'm going to stand by that. So again, I'd like to thank Cinthia for taking the initiative to write that article. She wrote it from the perspective of her own hometown of Austin, Texas, having some experiences that led her to have an emotionally triggered response that she was honest about, and it didn't sit well with her, and she decided to do something about it. She's not an author or an activist or anything. She's just a person that felt empowered and impassioned to try to make a difference in some small way, and I applaud that. It was a privilege to have her on as a guest. She was very enjoyable to talk to, really down to earth, so much fun, and super, super chill. You'll get that reference later. And one other note about this particular episode, we are talking a lot about bike racing, and we didn't really define it clearly on the podcast. We had talked previously, obviously, and we both knew what each other were talking about. But after listening to the podcast, I realized that we didn't articulate it actually while we were talking. So let me be clear. When we're talking about racing in this episode, we're talking about mass start group races where you're in close proximity, breathing, and all this kind of stuff on each other, right? I understand that the TNGA is actually going on right now. And we've seen Jay Peter very recently do an ITT on the Arkansas High Country route and race. Let's just be honest that right now is a very confusing time across the globe, especially in America. And this is not a condemnation of the TNGA or any other kind of self-supported styled racing that's going on. We all know that you're never in a large group and you're self-supported. You know, you go into gas stations and hop in and get a frozen burrito. You wear your mask, get back out there on the road solo. You know, I think we can do that safely. So yeah, just wanted to clarify that. Okay, and one other quick note about this episode. If you'd like to read the article that she wrote and was published on the Radavist, obviously you can head over to the Radavist and find it there. And I'm going to be publishing it on my website, bikesfordeath.com as well. And also going to put the follow-up article that she wrote to address some feedback that she got from her original article. We'll put it politely. So if you like to read that, and I think you should, head over to the Radavist or bikesfordeath.com and check that out. Okay, folks, thanks again for being here. And as always, Mr. Miles Arbor is going to take it away with the intro song. Let's get to it.
You load up your bike, you ride away from home. You could be with your friends or you could be alone. You ride for a day or maybe more. You just love being in the great outdoors. Everything you need is strapped to your bars, including that new pillow you got from Santa Claus. And then you think, oh shit, to yourself. You left that super lightweight tent on the living room shelf. Bikes or death. Bikes or death. Podcast.
All right, everybody. Today I'm sitting down in Hemp Hill Park in Austin, Texas with Cinthia Pedraza. Thank you for taking some time to chat with me today.
Thanks for having me.
And I'd like to emphasize that we are at Hemp Hill Park. I'd like to know how this park got its name.
No idea.
Freaking Austin,
I don't know. There's
you
no
weirdos here.
Yeah, but it's nice.
So you just got off your honeymoon.
I did. It was a 3-day honeymoon in Kyle, Texas, which is literally 10 minutes away from Austin, where we currently are. And we just stayed at a little inn called Sage Hill Inn, and it was just relaxing and nice and spacious and chill.
Did you get married during the pandemic?
Yeah, actually, we had to cancel our original wedding, which was on June 6th. And we were supposed to just have all of our family and friends and have a barbecue or something. But we obviously had to cancel that. And then we were just fuck it. Let's just get married and just invite our parents. And we got together at Camp Eagle, which is in Rocky Hill, Texas. And it's this big camp with swimming and mountain biking and stuff. And they opened it to the public temporarily. So we were let's not tell them we're getting married. Let's just pick a spot under a tree and just do it. And our friend married us, and it was cool.
That's awesome. Rocky Hill Ranch?
No, it was at Rock Springs, Texas.
Rock Springs,
called
yes.
Camp Eagle. Look it up. It's super nice. They have a mountain bike race there every year.
Right. It's part of
sick.
part of the Timbra series.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never made it out to that one because it's so
to.
far, but everybody says it's really good.
They have the only Super D in Texas, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Super downhill.
Even over Spider Mountain?
Oh, except for maybe Spider
Mountain. I don't know if they have a
I
Super
don't
D or
know.
not.
Yeah, I haven't made it out to Spider Mountain
I don't
yet.
do big jumps. I stay on the ground
me
most of the
neither.
time.
Yeah. No, I rode down it at Camp Eagle while we were there, but man, I definitely slid out a couple times. It's super steep.
That's awesome. A good way to social distance while bike riding and honeymooning in the apocalypse.
Totally. One way to do it.
So you came on my radar because of an article that you wrote for the Radavist titled Bike Racing, White Privilege, and the Coronavirus, which is something that we definitely need to get into. But before that, I kind of wanted to just get a better idea of you and your personal history in cycling. So maybe you can tell me when you got into cycling and how that happened.
Yeah, I was traveling abroad for a Spanish literature class, and we were in Costa Rica, and we were staying at a hostel. I met this 20-year-old kid briefly for an hour, and he was yeah, I rode my bike all the way from Oregon to Costa Rica. And then my bike got stolen. So now I'm stuck here.
Oh, man.
But I was that's sick. I had never heard of a bike tour before. I had hadn't ridden a bike since I was a kid. And I was just my mind was blown. I was holy shit, you can do this type of thing. You can go on this adventure and just ride your bike. And so I got back to Houston where I was for the summer in between freshman and sophomore year of college. And I found a bike that somebody was just giving away from their backyard. It was a Huffy. And I was I'm going to ride this bike all the way to Austin.
Oh.
And my parents were you're insane. That's really unsafe. You're a woman. You shouldn't be doing that. And
okay, back up. Hold on. So a guy rode his bike to Costa Rica. You heard about bike touring. You weren't a cyclist, but someone was giving away a free Huffy, and you decided that you were going to take that Huffy and ride it from here to Houston.
Yeah.
Which is how many miles?
It's 170. But like before I got the Huffy, I was like, I'm doing this thing. I don't have a bike. Like I'm going to find a bike somewhere. There's got to be a bike for me. And it was just like a crazy idea.
Okay, what is it about you that is open to that idea? Because most people, I mean, I talk to people all the time and like tell them what I do, and a light bulb doesn't always go off. I mean,
I don't know. I think like if you're a cyclist, you have to be like either adventurous or extreme or alternatively minded. Like those are the three characteristics I think that drive someone to become a cyclist. And I think I was just like all three or something. And it just blew my mind. I was like, I can't believe people do this. Why aren't I doing this already? It just sounded sick.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, tell me, so you got a Huffy that was in somebody's backyard, probably rusted chain and needed a tune-up and everything else.
Yeah, actually, I took it to the bike shop. They were like, you can't ride this. You're insane. It's a 26-inch. And I was like, I don't care what they say. Like, they don't know me. Like, I'm going to do this.
Right.
And then my dad was like, hey, you want to do this? It seems like you're pretty determined. I'm going to help you do this. And my dad and my uncle pulled together some money and they bought me a Fuji Finest 3.0, which is a really entry-level road bike. And then we picked up some clip-in shoes, which I had just heard about. And I don't know, I just put them on, started training for like 2 weeks. And then my mom was like, all right, I'm going to follow you. And I downloaded the MS 150 route, which is like this charity event that goes from Houston to Austin. So I was like, I'll just follow their route. And I got lost along the way a little bit, but my mom met me every 40 miles with my sister and our dog, and we camped at Lake Lafayette, halfway between Houston and Austin. And then,
so were you carrying your gear too?
No.
So it wasn't a proper bike tour? Just...
No, I had like a Camelback and like 2 bottles of water. Or no, I think maybe just 1 bottle of water and a Camelback. And then my mom had snacks. I didn't really know how to eat properly or anything. And I did like fall and just like fell over because I didn't know how to unclip.
Yeah.
But it was fine. And then I got to Austin and I was like, fuck yeah, I'm so cool. I'm so strong. I can do anything that I want to do. And after that, I think my dad specifically, who he's like from Mexico, he just like started to respect me more as a person. He was like, wow, you are strong. Like you can do this. And I think after that, we just had a little bit of a shift in our relationship where he was like, you're an adult and you can choose what you want to do and stuff like that. So that was really nice too.
I can tell that was an emotional moment for
you. It is. Yeah. My dad, like, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff between Mexican dads and their daughters where they're very protective and they also tell you can't do certain things because you're a woman. And not just dads, just the whole culture tells women the stuff that they can't do.
Yeah, I've actually run into this before. A girl named Trish Nag. I went on a bikepacking trip. It was a group of first-timers going on a bikepacking trip, a 5-day bikepacking trip in the desert. So pretty extreme, very remote, very rugged. And Trish had never been camping in her life, had not really ridden a bicycle or anything like that, and was met with a ton of resistance from her family. She was Hispanic. She had to call like the professor and get the professor to talk to the family. And she had some barriers that she had to work through as well. But ultimately, her family did accept that decision to do that and then became very supportive of it. And she got her family into camping and stuff like that. So it's really an empowering thing that I love to see. Is it not only shows yourself that you're a very capable person and you can really take on more than most people think that you can, but it shows other people around you too. Like, I mean, probably not your friends as much, but yeah, I'm sure it's nice that your parents are like, hell yeah, girl.
Yeah, and they've all like since then gotten their own bikes. And like they don't ride them that much, but like they have them and they have the option and sometimes they whip them out. So,
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, grow the bike community.
Yeah,
that's
totally.
What we need is, I mean, that's ultimately what we're talking about is bringing more people into the bike community and making it more diverse and making it accessible to everybody. So, I mean, you're obviously an example of making that happen. So I'm curious, I don't know if you know, but my podcast usually focuses more on bikepacking and like the ultra endurance long stuff. So you did this, quasi bike tour. with a little assistance. Like, let's not downplay 170 miles on your bike as like a new cyclist is crazy.
Yeah,
like,
I know. I was
there's
like,
people who are
"Whoa."
listening like, oh, I'll knock that out in an afternoon. And maybe you would right now too.
No, I've done it since then. My record is 10 hours for 170 miles. But we like stopped along the way, but like our ride time was 10 hours. But we did it all in one day.
Wow. I'm trying to think the longest push I've ever had is 190. And I think it took me
In one day?
12 hours.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. But it was a bike packing race. And so I was like trying to go for it. But so did you ever segue into doing any kind of long distance bike packing stuff, or where did you land?
Yeah, I like the other thing that I've done is like the ride across Texas, or they call it the race across Texas, which is from Texarkana to Big Bend. But I only did the first 3 days, which was like 300 miles, self-supported with 2 other ladies. And that was really sick.
The Rat 1000, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Rat, I forgot it's called the Rat.
Yeah, the Rat 1000. Geez, when does that? I don't know if it's going on this year. I was trying to think if I've heard if it's going to happen.
So. It's put on by Spinistry, I think, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, Spinistry is doing another event. Kevin P posted on Facebook that he's got like symptoms.
He's like, I might have COVID, but you should still come race.
So anyway, good luck with that. I mean, I'm not a racer. I mean, I'm ignorant to the racing side of the sport. Not that I have anything against it. I'm just not fast and don't care to race. I like to do other things on my bike, and that's the great thing about cycling is that everybody can experience it the way that they like to. So I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around why there's this urgency to race and what is the value there? What are they getting out of it? Why are the race promoters promoting races, and why is the USA Cycling Association lifting the ban on racing and letting people, like, I don't personally get it.
Yeah.
Like, do you have any insight as to?
I mean, no, except just that USA Cycling is a business and profits over people, and the community that supports them will give them money to put on these events, even if it's a detriment to the entire community. And does that really reflect every racer's values? Probably not. Like, tons of racers didn't come out and race to our local races when they were still happening a couple weeks ago, but tons of people did. So I guess we're divided just the way that a lot of Americans are, where it's like, close it down, or like, let's go to restaurants and hang out and pretend like nothing's happening. But it's very callous because people really are dying, and people are suffering, not just like because the people are dying, but financially. Like, people have lost their jobs, and maybe it's pretty insensitive to be doing this luxury sport while people are suffering financially and medically, and or just are dead. You know, like, I feel like that's not a wild thing to say. It's like, why we should care.
I guess it's just,
line.
I mean, I was hearing that the NFL, I think, is opening back up, and college sports are coming back. I mean, I live in a college town. You live in a college town, and it's going to bring all kinds of people. And you got athletes that are like hitting each other and sweating on each other.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just cycling, but we're cyclists, and this is the area that I've devoted and you've devoted some time in your life to like, okay, how can we make cycling better? And so, I mean, this is a problem that we're experiencing as a nation. And we are so divided. And in my personal opinion, maybe it's American to just be so divided and so divisive.
But that's fucked up. Like, is that what we want to be as a country? People who like only care about ourselves and not the collective community?
No, for sure. I mean, I don't like it at all. And it's a big reason why I started a podcast, because we're so divided with social media and with news, in my opinion. Like, they're just cesspools for getting people emotionally riled up, triggered, and not really like having genuinely informed opinions. We have meme opinions on the internet, and we don't really like know what the fuck we're talking about. We pick a camp and we say, this is my team and I'm going to defend it. And if you try to like really have a conversation about it, people will just like yell. I mean, I hate it. I've removed myself from, social media, internet arguments, because in my opinion, they're fruitless, And what I really want to promote, and what I think is so desperately needed, is conversation. We as a people, as a community, as a nation, whatever, we need to be able to have conversations about everything. Easy topic, hard topics, and not have emotionally triggered topics, Like, we can't go into a conversation and say, and already have your opinion so well defined and so established that nobody can even talk to you.
For
like,
sure.
what the fuck is
Yeah,
that? You know,
totally,
I really
yes.
hate that. And so I talk about cycling, but in every aspect of our lives, like communication can be improved in every area. You know, racism is an issue in America. I mean, I haven't lived anywhere else. So in America, you know, we have a racism issue, and we have to be able to like talk about these issues and not be emotionally triggered, and like really seek to understand something outside your own like worldview and your own perspectives and stuff. So I don't know, I'm kind of going on.
No, I've definitely struggled with that because I have very strong opinions, and my in-laws are Republicans, and like I love them so much. They're so kind to me, and they've been so supportive. But like we have had difficult conversations, and it's been really awkward and really hard, but ultimately we're closer because of it, and we find that we're like more closely aligned than we are separate. I mean, I think most Americans are good people. Most Americans will agree that people shouldn't die because of a virus, but we have to like talk to each other and reason with each other and not be just rude to each other all the time.
It's hard. I think we're like programmed with everything. Again, with the news and social media, two things I don't have a lot of affinity for. But I mean, it's all designed intentionally to get an emotional response, to get you angry so you'll spend more time there and they can sell advertising dollars. Okay, let's be very clear about what is happening. And so we are like programmed to be just emotionally triggered, I think, you know? And so I want to be an antidote for that. And obviously you do too, which is why you wrote that paper to... Well, actually, why did you write the paper? What was the motivation behind it? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, I was triggered. I was super triggered. Like,
thank you for your honesty.
Yeah, you've seen like the protests happening, and a lot of stuff has been happening in Austin. And there was one Saturday when this very first started, when all the protests first started, there were two protests, one in front of the Capitol building and one in front of APD, Austin Police Department. And so I go to the one in front of the Capitol. There's like people screaming, and it's like a huge deal. It's very emotionally charged, but I felt the need to go because I was like, yeah, Black Lives Matter. Of course, yeah, I'll go. And I didn't even look into it. I'm just like, pro Black Lives, I'm going to this protest. And we were like riding our BMX bikes. We go to the one in front of APD, and everything's fine. Like, it's chill, and some people are like eating food. Some people are like just standing there. Some people are yelling. And I felt safe. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I don't know the full story. I don't know what was happening, but APD started shooting into the crowd, like rubber bullets. At the time, I didn't know they were rubber bullets. I didn't know police were doing this.
Yeah.
And so I just showed up, and I was just standing there, and all of a sudden I'm getting shot at, and people around me are like falling to the ground. And I thought they were dead, and they're shooting from like in front of the police department from on top of 35 where they were standing, shooting down into the crowd. And then I saw someone's like hand blown open, or like it was all bloody, and a lady had to get like dragged off the ground. And so I just like break down crying, and I'm just like having a hard time. And I start like, we just get out of there. We're like, fuck this. Like, why is this happening? I just had never felt so unsafe in my life. And I was like, this is
in America with a police presence there to protect you.
Yeah. And
to serve and protect the people.
I just had never experienced that. I never had felt that kind of fear towards a police officer. And I was like, this is how Black people must feel every day. And it was like an enlightening, like, oh shit, man, this is awful. So I'm like crying. I'm like riding my little BMX bike home. I passed by the second protest by the Capitol. And in front of the Capitol, there's like this really fancy Italian restaurant. There are like 6 tables, and they're all full of white people. And they're all having a great meal, and they're having a great time. And like literally within viewing distance, there's like this crowd of anger and sadness and like pain. And I'm like, we're living in 2 different worlds. Like, how is this possible that I was literally just shot at? These people are fighting for their lives, and these other people are just like having a great time, like pretending like nothing's happening. And it was really intense. And I got home, and I had been thinking about, I've never written anything in my life except for like a college paper. And so I've been thinking about this racing thing for a while, and I was like, why are we still racing? And I get home and I'm like, no, I have to like do something about this. And so I'm like, I'm going to write about it. And so I just start writing. I send it to a couple of my friends. They like proofread it and they're like, yeah, you should publish this. And I'm like, anybody want to publish this? I sent it to like 10 people. They were like, looks good, but no. Machines for Freedom was going to publish it. Bicycle Magazine thought about it, but they were giving me a lot of critiques. And then I just was like, I'm just going to share it on my Instagram story and my Facebook. And I mean, at least my friends will see it, and I was really speaking to my Austin community when I was writing it because our local race promoters were still planning on hosting large crits the week after that.
The week after the protest?
The week after the state reopened. They were like, all right, the state reopened. We're going to like continue racing. And so that's why I was like a little bit triggered. But I was like, I'll just post this. And if my friends read it and other people read it, that would be great. So people read it and they started sharing it. And I think that's how John Watson from the Radavist saw it. And he was like, hey, is this published anywhere? And I was like, no. And he was like, cool. Can I publish it? I was like, what? Okay. So I guess that's how that all happened. But yeah, I just wrote it because it's not right that we're still racing. It's not right that our community is in this bubble where we pretend like we're above the suffering and the pain and everything that's happening right now. And then that we like choose to contribute to that suffering and pain by like possibly spreading the virus further. That's impacting people in my community, like the Latino community, that are dying higher rates and stuff like that, and Black people, people of color. And I'm like, is this why racing is still okay? Because it's primarily white and like they're not being, I mean,
they don't see it.
Yeah, aren't seeing
maybe
it.
They don't see it, which is why maybe you felt it was important to share a different perspective. Like, hey, like let's open our eyes to this a little bit. I want to, before we get too far, I want to give you a chance to address something that maybe people listening will have a question about: the distinction between attending a protest and attending a race. So, like, how do you make that distinction?
Of course.
I just want to give you a chance to address that.
Bike racing, hobby, protest, progress of society. Like that's prioritization. It's like where you can wear a mask at a protest, you can't wear a mask at a bike race. And also, like, is this bettering our society as a whole? If the answer is yes, then you should absolutely be doing that. Is this like hindering our society as a whole?
Right.
If the answer is yes, then you shouldn't be doing that. Like bike racing is hindering us right now as moving forward with the progress of society.
Yeah. Okay. Good point. Thank you. So, I mean, listen, people, this is where we live in. Well, she did that. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to give you a chance to address that.
I think it's super valid. And I definitely thought about that. I was like, man, should I be over here? But I was like, yeah, like I should.
This matters.
Yeah, this matters.
Yeah.
This isn't a hobby. This isn't for fun. This is like serious. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and they're all happening outside, and you can choose. I mean, I know not everybody's social distancing and wearing masks, but hopefully, again, we can't control what people do, right? But I mean, you can participate and choose to do it in a safe way, or as safe as possible. Is the USA Cycling Association or any of these race promoters doing anything to protect the athletes in the community in terms of like testing or making them wear a mask? Or, I mean, is there any kind of like safety protocols that are set up?
I did see somewhere in Colorado people were racing with masks, which I think is cool. Maybe that's the solution, race with a mask. Like I would feel better about that than not.
They make those training masks even where you can train. But see, if everybody's wearing the same mask, if they had like a standard mask where they could just say, okay, you wear this one and everyone has the same restriction, then I guess I'm not a scientist, but but it seems, or an epidemiologist, I guess, the consensus is that if everybody wears masks, that, it's pretty darn safe. Is what we understand right now.
That's what we've seen. I think they were saying something about the protests and how they haven't been like mass spreader events because people have been wearing masks generally. I don't know. I think we're all just like doing the best we can, and I think that's one solution. But another solution is just like not racing. Like it's like abstinence, right? Like you can't get pregnant if you don't, you can't get COVID if you just like don't.
Yeah, well, I
raise.
like what you said. I mean, prioritizing it, and I mean, I'm still trying to wrap my head around. I mean, I guess it's just profits over people. I mean,
For sure.
and and that's part of the problem is like as an industry, if the industry says, industry being race promoters and the USA Cycling Association and anybody else who's like organizing these events, if they're saying this is okay. I mean, another problem we have is like there's too much information and like people are sheep and they're just like, oh, well, USA Cycling Association said it's okay. So obviously they've done all their homework. They've like have our best interest in mind. And this is totally fine thing to do, and some people might not even be educating themselves at all as to like what's really happening and should they be doing it. It's just there's a race promoter putting it on and they're like, okay, well, I guess that's fine.
I watched this very boring 2-hour-long webinar that USA Cycling put out about restarting bike racing and what race promoters should do. And they were like, we can't get rid of the risk of the virus, but we can minimize it. So like they acknowledge that there's a risk, and if there's a risk that somebody might die who is in this event, then why are we hosting that event? Or like not even just like that person dying, but like going back to their family, infecting their family, or like whoever the cashier at the gas station. If it was just affecting the racers, be like, fuck it, let those guys die. If that's worth it to them, that's their decision. Who am I to tell them no? But it's like they're impacting everyone that they come into contact with. So that's why I'm like, this is a big deal. We should care.
So let's talk a little bit about how, your article draws some parallels between bike racing and how it's specifically impacting low income, Black, people of color. Can you elaborate on that for the sake of the podcast?
Yeah. I'm speaking for all bike racers. Love to have beer after a race and like go to the bar and like sit outside and talk about the race. And the people serving us are lower income people who are more likely to be of color, people at the grocery store. Like if you go to H-E-B or grocery store here, most of the people working there are Hispanic, and all of the people that you have to come into contact with who are essential workers are most likely from the BIPOC community, which I have some issues with the term BIPOC, but it's just like a new one for me. But
it's so hard. There's so many terms that come up all the time, and it's like I don't know.
It's too much to keep track of.
It really is.
But it's just like we have to come into contact with these essential workers. If we eventually get sick and like go to the hospital, like there might be, I don't know. It's just the community being impacted are essential workers, and essential workers tend to be more from Black and brown communities.
Yeah, I think it's something that people may not be aware of. And I'm a white guy, and I do have, some luxuries and privileges that a lot of people don't have. Like one thing that, I did a little research. I like numbers. I'm a numbers guy. And so I went to Johns Hopkins. I'm like, okay, because I read your article. I'm like, okay, what are the actual numbers? Like how, what are the numbers basically? So so this was from Johns Hopkins and their stats. And it says that people of color, let me start over. So Black people, white people are the baseline, by the way. Let me say for this, like white people are the lowest impacted by the coronavirus, period. And this article that came out was like from a few days ago. So like the numbers are updated. Black people are dying at 3.7 times higher rate. Indigenous people are 3.5 times higher than white people. So it's like a huge number. For every one white person, there's 3.7 Black people or 3.5 Indigenous people that are infected by the coronavirus and are either dying or getting over or whatever, but they're impacted by the coronavirus. So then I was like curious, like, well, what are the contributing factors to those higher numbers? And I'm just going to read what they said. And they said crowded housing conditions, which we actually talked about before the podcast, where I'm a real estate agent and I showed a house not too long ago. It was a 2-bedroom house. And at the time that I showed the house, there was 2 kids, 4 adults, and 2 of them were like living on mattresses in the living room, and the whole house was it was full of people. So that really resonated when I read that crowded housing condition. That's when, like, I have a house. It's me and my family. Like, we can quarantine. I'm also self-employed. Like, I can work from home. You know? Working in essential fields was the next one, which you said. I mean, okay, so there's a pandemic. You have rent, you need food, you need to go to work. So you're exposing yourself. You're putting yourself at a health risk to serve the community because you have to.
Not because it's your hobby.
There you go. Point taken. Inconsistent access to health care. So, I mean, that one, I don't have health care either.
Yeah.
But I mean, not being able to have health care and not having access to good health care and being able to treat yourself, or even like because part of the virus is like if you're having pre-existing conditions through an ongoing lack of not having the health care that you need, then you're more susceptible to the virus, which leads into their next one, which is chronic health conditions, and then just stress, and that probably speaks to, God, I mean, we're all stressed, but I can imagine if I was a person of color, if I was Black or an Indigenous person, I didn't write down, I should have wrote down the numbers for Latinos since I'm speaking
No,
to
that's
you.
okay. They're pretty high. Yeah.
But what I was talking about is the stress that I can imagine the stress. Like, there's a big social movement with the Black Lives Matter, and really some good awareness and traction is happening as a nation. And people are looking to use that as a catalyst to let's keep this going. There's a pandemic. I mean, and like, I have kids, and so like kids are home all the time. Like, you have to have someone to watch your kids while you go to work. It's just, there's a lot of stress going on right now.
For sure.
So I don't know, did any of that stick out to you?
Just a large family. Like, my dad has 9 brothers and 1 sister, and they all live within 10 minutes of each other in Houston. And then whenever you have an old person, Hispanic people don't typically put them in homes. So they're probably living with one of their kids. And then,
which is another thing that's different from white people.
Yeah.
We're just hey, there's a house. I pay for that.
You're on your own now.
Yeah.
Thanks for all the stuff you did for me.
It's crazy, man.
But yeah, just
even in Asian culture, I mean, Latino and Asian culture is so common for the parent to come and live with the family. You take care of them, which is the way it should be. You should. If I understand correctly, the way I've always heard it is the parents work hard to improve their children's life, and then the children kind of pay it back. They're okay, it's my turn to take care of you.
Which can be a burden, but it's also kind of beautiful,
Yeah.
It's just the cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, my family, my grandma lives with my parents currently. She was traveling from Mexico to the US when Corona hit. So now she's just living with them. And so she decided to stay for a while because she was I might not be able to come back if I leave, but her visa is going to expire soon. So she's heading back to Mexico soon. But my parents have both of my sisters themselves, and then my grandma. So that's 5 people. So,
And she's about to come from America and go and...
No, she's been in America. She's about to go back.
Sorry, I said that wrong. But she's about to go... So she's coming from a hotbed, Texas, with the virus to go back to your family.
Back to it, yeah.
Are they going to... See, and that's the other thing. I was about to say, are they going to quarantine her? But can she even quarantine? Is there space for her?
Mexico doesn't really. I mean, they're you want to come here? Okay, whatever. They don't have that many rules. That's one of the places where Americans can travel right now, but...
They shouldn't.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the title of your paper, specifically white privilege. So I know that you got some pushback on that, which is anytime you have an opinion, someone else is going to have another opinion. That's just the way it is. Triggered.
And honestly, I was really debating whether or not I should use that phrase because I'm a bike racer and most of my friends are white because they're bike racers. Or I don't know, they just are white. So I was
cycling is a super white sport. Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Tour de France all the way down to, what I do in bike packing and ultra. I mean, it's so white anyway.
It's very white. So I was should I use it? And I was yeah, you know what? This is how I feel. I'm not going to change my mind. It is a privilege what we're doing as bike racers. And most of us are white. So it's it's associated. It's white. It's white privilege. And so people were calling me a racist, on social media, and they were you're calling us a racist. Well, I think you're a racist. I'm I'm not calling anyone a racist. I'm just saying that we're contributing to inequality by spreading the virus. We have to pay attention that most of the people are white, and maybe we didn't really want to acknowledge that until now, but it's definitely true. And I didn't mention this in our article, but like, is this really what we value as a community, keeping it white? Or like, is it more interesting and less boring if there's more diversity? But just kind of like shining a little light, like, yeah, this is also like a form of white privilege. You get to like go on a weekend trip to spend like $200 on a bike race on your like $3,000 carbon, whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's a huge privilege. And I definitely like, I'm not white and I have that privilege and I can acknowledge that's a huge privilege, but it's just from the perspective of like most of the people doing that are white and we just acknowledge it, you know?
Well, help educate me and other white people that are listening about, I mean, what is it like to be a Latino looking at entering the, I mean, you got into cycling like 2012?
Yeah.
So
In
8 years
collegiate,
ago.
yeah. Collegiate
And so like, I mean, you had a fairly recent, I mean, you were an adult, so you can remember, I mean, what was it like coming into a super white sport?
I don't know. I guess like coming from Houston where there was tons of diversity. There was tons of Black people. There was tons of Mexican people. And then getting to college and just seeing like, where are all the Black people? Where are all the brown people? And then just getting into racing, I was like, oh, naturally this is white too because it's a collegiate sport. And then coming into regular Texpro racing, Texas bicycle racing, it's, even though we have a large Hispanic population, for some reason they're just not there. And maybe it's like economic or maybe it's cultural or something like that. But I've had the chance to race in Mexico and there's like tons of Mexican bike racers there who are like super fast. And so I'm wondering why that doesn't translate.
Yeah, I guess you didn't. Well, where did you grew up in Mexico and when did you come to America?
No.
Okay, sorry.
No, my parents were from Mexico. My mom came here illegally when she was pregnant with me. And my dad became a naturalized citizen when I was like in high school or something. But I was born in Houston.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So you were raised in America. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
I mean, so your culture growing up in America, there just wasn't like bikes weren't a part of it, and you don't know why really.
Yeah, no. I mean, now looking back, I'm like, okay, maybe there wasn't infrastructure that would support somebody riding a bike on those roads, like in the neighborhood my family
Think
lived
about
in.
that. I love that point, and it's something that I look at a lot, and I've talked about before. Like when I go ride my bike, I go to, I mean, if I'm not out in the middle of nowhere, like I like to ride very safely. I don't want to get hit by a car, and so I like to go where there's good cycling infrastructure. And if I'm going through a city, it's in the nicer part of the city. Like we rode through downtown Austin, and I mean, the bike lanes and bike infrastructure here.
Sick.
I mean, all the bike paths,
Yeah.
like all along the Colorado River. I mean, it is awesome. I love it, love it,
fat
love it.
lanes.
Yeah, y'all got some fat lanes.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they tie into the lower income portions, but I know in my community, when I go to ride my bike, I go to like affluent neighborhoods because there's wide roads, there's sidewalks, they're lit.
Lower speed limits.
The lower speed limits, and you know what? The people there are driving nice cars, and the last thing they want to do is hit me and ruin their night. You know, they're going home to a nice family meal or whatever, and like they don't want to hit me. You know, so not that other people. Well, I think actually, some people have it out for cyclists. We all know that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just safer. And like in my community, again, the bike paths and all those cycling, they're only in the nice areas. You know, they're not in the lower income areas. I've ridden my bike in there too, and they're narrow streets. They're not swept. They're potholes. It's just not conducive to riding a bike.
Sure.
You know,
that's how it is in Austin. Like the downtown area, the central area, or like the more affluent areas, all have bike lanes. But if you go further out, further like east, there's not a lot of shoulder or anything to ride with.
That's a good point that I guess I kind of was like peripherally aware of it based on my own personal riding habits, but not aware of it as a barrier to, you know, like mom and dad saying, yeah, go ride your bike around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
When I grew up, all I did was ride around the neighborhood. I mean, that's the only thing that I did as a kid. And, you know, it was safe. I mean, no one ever.
That's huge.
Dude, I mean, it's changed my entire life. The way that I was raised, the freedoms that I had. My mom stayed at home. and she kicked us out of the house and made us go ride our bikes and explore and live outside. And that was how I was raised.
Yeah.
And I really, to this day, as an adult, try to capture that. When I go ride my bike, we would ride around Austin. I'm like, I don't have a plan. I just want to go explore. I want to go see what's out there. I want to go I don't know, just experience Austin. You can really do that on a bike. And it stems from my childhood where I originally got that. So yeah, that resonates with me for sure. So lack of infrastructure, I have to assume money.
Money for sure. Yeah. I mean, even when you do go to a group ride and you show up on this shitty bike with an oversized jersey or something, people might make fun of you. And that's part of cycling culture or bike racing culture that I hope changes to make it more inclusive towards people who are just getting started and trying to do the best they can. But on that same note, so many people have helped me become the cyclist that I am today, teaching me hey, you're not supposed to wear underwear underneath your bibs. Or riding with me when I'm going 10 miles per hour and I'm super bonked, and they are so patient with me. And just all of the kindness that exists in our sport. Every bike racer has had a ton of people teach them for free. I mean, most people can't pay a coach or anything. So teach them how to eat, how to ride, where to ride, what are some good routes. And then just accepting them into this group and helping them along to build them up. That's what I really love about the bike racing community, that you can't be born being a good bike racer or a good cyclist. You have to have the love and support of people around you who are willing to take that time to build you up instead of break you down. So that's what I always think of. I was really a little bit depressed whenever COVID first started and I saw everybody still group riding, because I was like, man, we're so selfish. We're still racing. We're still riding together. We're we don't care. And then I started thinking about all of those people who helped me. I've seen tons of beautiful stuff that's happened. Once there was this race promoter who had cancer, and he had been a big member of the cycling community. And one of the guys that he helped build up, one of the kids, he was 17 when he first started, became a great bike racer. And we were on a group ride with him while he was going through his chemo treatment. And this kid who had become this great cyclist was pushing him along the road because he was his body was so worn out that he couldn't keep up. So this guy was pushing him, and it was kind of this beautiful cycle of he helped build up this guy. Now this guy's helping him when he's suffering. And just tons of examples of the community coming together to help each other. I think it's why we're so close and why I care so much that we're harming each other at this time. It's we can do better. Not everybody's racing or riding together, but I mean, there's a lot of love there, and we can all just do better and care about each other a little bit more.
I appreciate that. I mean, I personally agree that in my experience, I always say we're the shitty ones, and I'm not in the race. I hear the racing gets a little bit more, there's a little more ego and stuff.
Oh, there's a lot of ego. Yeah, it's all ego.
You said a little bit outside, that's not the word you use, a little bit outside the box, a little bit, do you remember the word you used?
What? Oh,
the three
adventurous, things. Extreme, or alternative thinkers.
Alternative thinkers, yeah, that's the one I like, which we all kind of bond over this. I don't think we're that weirdos, but for whatever reason, the bike really bonds us together, and it brings similar people together. And we are a little bit more diverse and open-minded, I think, by and large in our thinking. And I think I hope that's why we're seeing the cycling community really, what I'm seeing, and again, outside of racing, a lot of companies and cyclists really coming together and trying to make changes. You may or may not be aware, the bikepacking.com has recently raised $50,000 for people of color programs to create adventures, buy gear, whatever it is, and Bikepacking Roots has raised $40 or something thousand, and they're doing the same thing. I'm seeing a lot of people who are in the industry that are trying to make it more inclusive, making it easier for everybody to access it. A lot of it is an income disparity gap, I think. One of it is income, And the other that I want to try to correct is the perception of, and actually having examples. We just had Leo Rogers on. You said you listened to that podcast. I mean, what an amazing story.
Yeah.
That's what we need, is just like more examples. People like him, people like you, who are willing to be an example. And I mean, if you are in this position where you have benefited from other people's generosity and you know, all the things that we've talked about, now you're taking that and you're saying, okay, well, what can I do to make a difference, you know? And it's not easy. Like, you're going to write an article and people are going to talk shit, but it matters.
I appreciate that. Yeah. No, yeah. Some days I was like on the verge of tears, and my husband was just like, stop reading the bad comments. It's like so many people appreciated it. Just focus on that. And
I think that's good advice. I mean, what I want to promulgate is the conversation, and not everybody's going to get everything right all the time. I say dumb things a lot. I misspeak. I am ignorant. You know, all these things. But like, if we're not allowed to talk about it, that's when there's a problem. And so you might look back on that art. I mean, maybe you will, maybe you won't. But in 5 years, your perception might have changed, right?
Yeah.
You probably will, and you might write that article different. But that's the thing. Like, we're all progressing, and we need people who are willing to share their voice and be willing to actually have a well thought out, articulated opinion, and then be open to have a conversation about it. You know. But I agree. Internet nasty comments, I ignore them. I don't respond. I have a podcast. If you want to talk to me, come and talk to me, you know, like, I'll have a conversation with you, but I'm not going to engage in
trolling.
Internet. I don't. It's like, I don't know if it's a 13-year-old little boy on the end that's just like screwing with me. Like,
or
I don't know.
someone who's just having a bad day and needs a snack.
Yeah,
you know, like he changed their mind like 5 minutes later. They're like, oh, had a snack.
Right. It's back to emotional. You see, well, how many people read the title of your article,
we're immediately
didn't read it,
off.
and automatically like had an opinion and were triggered and emotional and commented without even reading it? You know, that's, again, part of the problem. All right, what else do we have here? I know you mentioned in your article like some of the good things that are coming as a result of this.
Yes.
So let's tie a happy bow on it.
So out of like all of this is like the social stuff that's going on. I know of like 3 different teams that are specifically targeting the growth of people of color in racing. So I think there's one they're just like all across the U.S. And these are people that I kind of know personally who are starting one in Austin, one in like Bentonville. And I don't know where the other one is, but...
Bentonville. We talk a lot about Bentonville in the podcast.
Yeah, it seems like a sick place. I think I've been there once for a bike race in college for like 2 days.
You will love it. That's another community. Well, Walmart put like $17 million into the infrastructure. And so it's just insane.
Yeah, I got to check it out.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things, just like bringing awareness. And then on Facebook, I'm part of this group, or I'm an admin of this group called like Austin Women's Cycling Rides. And it's just like women getting together and being like, hey, where are you riding? Oh, I'm riding over here. Let's ride together. And lately there's been like 50 new members of people who are, I guess, just quarantined and like getting into riding. And so they're like seeking out this community. So I'm stoked. Like, if we can get past this whole virus thing and we can bring all of those ladies together for like a group ride and meet each other and like grow each other as cyclists. Yeah. I'm stoked on that. And it's not just women, it's like everyone. Like, if you go out on some of these streets and see some of the bikes out there, like there's a lot of 90s bikes out there now, or like whatever bikes and like mismatched kits that I've never seen before, because I've been in Austin for a while, so I can recognize a lot of people on the road, but these are totally new, or entire families, like mom, dad, plus their babies, like riding bikes behind them. Yep. So I'm stoked on that too.
And we're all seeing, I mean, I was at my bike shop the other day. They like bought some frames from one company and some forks from another. And they were like, they're just like building whatever random bike they can to sell because they can't get any bikes in stock. And everybody wants to go ride bikes. Everybody wants to recreate. And so I agree. I think if we can come through this, like you say, and we're going to have a really strong, healthy community that we can foster and grow, and it's going to be great for everybody, the racers too, the promoters, right? I mean, there's more people racers, that want to go race and all that, so it benefits everybody. There's another thing that you mentioned in your article, I remember, it was like the
slow streets.
Yeah,
in Austin they're called healthy streets, but some other places slow streets.
We saw those for the first time last night.
Yeah.
And I was like, hold on, we got to stop and look at this sign. It says healthy streets, bike, pedestrian, whatever only.
Yeah.
And I'm loving this. So yeah.
Like we're rethinking about our infrastructure as an entire, like the whole world is doing it. So that's sick. Like maybe we do need more space to ride bikes. Like maybe this is a valid form of transportation, you know?
Duh.
So, yeah.
Well, did you know that the streets were originally developed for cyclists in the late 1800s? Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Oh.
So before cars,
yeah,
they developed, because cycling was the main mode of transportation. I mean, it swept America, and all the streets were designed for bikes, and then cars came and ruined everything.
We're reclaiming them.
But again, the numbers that we're seeing that are growing as a result of pandemic, and obviously no one wants to be in a pandemic, but hey, there's a little bit of bright side. People are realizing that Netflix is not an endless entertainment and that their Xbox gets boring and they're tired of their kids or whatever. And they're like, we need to get out of the house because we're going freaking crazy.
Yeah, I'm stoked. And then also like people bringing attention to people of color and diversity in the community. Like that's huge for all those new cyclists that are like, oh, here's this guy interviewing somebody that looks like me. Like that's sick. And maybe I do belong here, because sometimes whenever you're like the other or like you're the minority, like if you're the only lady or if you're the only Hispanic person, sometimes you feel like, do I belong here? You know?
Well, think about me. Like what if what if every single cyclist was black and I showed up?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the exact same thing, isn't it? I mean, I would be like,
culture shock, change.
Yeah, I don't know what I would think, but it wouldn't. I don't know. I wouldn't like look and say, "Oh, I belong there."
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't. That's not the immediate thought.
Yeah.
I would probably need to know more about like what is it like? Like what are these people like? What's the vibe like?
Yeah.
Am I welcome? Am I not welcome?
Yeah.
I don't know. You know.
Yeah.
So yes, as an industry, by and large, we are seeing you are welcome. We're gonna promote people of color. We're gonna make financial, raise money so that you can have access. People in the media are giving attention through articles, through YouTube, podcasts, whatever. There is a lot of really good things that are coming from it, but it's coming from people like you and others who are willing to share their voice and be heard and let everybody else know. Just like open your eyes, like there's so many people in this world, there's so many cultures and perspectives, and we need to be open-minded to everybody so that it can be an open playing field for anybody.
I have some advice.
Okay, bring it. I love advice.
Because a lot of people are like, what can I do?
Yes, let's hit that.
For me personally, it was just like connecting with people like taking the time, like you get to a group ride, it's your first group ride ever, or it's your first time riding in the area. And you're just like, oh man, are people going to like me? Like, should I be here? And just like be that person that's like, hey, how's it going? What's your name? What are you doing here? Or like if you see somebody that needs help, here's a sick route you can go on because you're riding on this dangerous road. Or here's like a used pair of gloves because it looks like you need some gloves, or offering any support that you can. Like it doesn't have to be monetary. It can just be emotional support. Like, hey, I want to be your friend. Like, thanks for coming, or,
I think that's
stuff like that.
I mean, it's easy and it's huge. I mean, if somebody's new, welcome them in. Yeah, I can relate to that. I mean, I remember going to my first ever social ride. And again, I mean, it's all white people, regardless of skin color. I was nervous. I was still a new group of people. And, I was like on my bike and I didn't want to look like the dummy, And so you just don't want to show up to like an athletic thing and be the shitty person
or be ignored
and just like cast aside. So yeah, there's a lot of like things that are going on, and I know they're really hard things, but I'm hoping and I feel like things are going in a good direction, that there's more awareness, and that it'll only, hopefully, if we keep to foster this, it'll look much different in 10, 20 years from now. Much like if you look back 20 years, I mean, it's much different now than it was then. So yeah, hopefully we keep going in the same direction.
Yeah, I think the future looks good. I mean, well, after the pandemic, the future looks good. Like first we got to get through this, but yeah, for sure. There's a lot of beautiful humans out there in the cycling community who have a lot of love and kindness to give, and we can just build on that.
It's been the best community just for me to be a part of. I've been in a lot of different sports, 40 years old. I've met a lot of people and been in a lot of different situations.
You're 40?
Yeah.
What? Cool.
Do I look old or young?
No, younger. I would have guessed like 30.
Oh,
32.
wow. 32. It's this beard. It hides all my age or
Your
something.
wrinkles.
I forgot what I was saying now. Oh, I'm 40. I met a lot of people. I get one compliment. I'm like, ooh. But yeah, I mean, and this community by and large has been extremely just kind and like just really down to earth, good people that you can talk to. And let's bring everybody on. Like, I always think it's funny. I don't know if I think it's funny, but as a joke, I always wondered if like white people in racing were scared of like opening up to black people because they know that it's just like going to be all over but the crying, right? They're like, no, this is the only sport we have.
This is all we have. That's hilarious.
Sorry. I'm sure there's no truth to that.
No,
but,
I mean, I don't know.
It's kind of, but yeah, like it was like you were saying earlier about, is this really a race? Like, are you really the best?
Yeah.
I don't know.
If it's not open to everyone, like, are you really the best?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Open it up. Open cycling.
Open it up.
What else? Did we miss anything? Was there anything else that you wanted to say?
I don't know. I guess I've had the chance to like travel all around the world to like 5 different countries or something. And every time that I meet a cyclist, like I went to Cuba one time for a study abroad for geography, and I went to Macedonia once, and I've had a chance to like meet those like cycling communities. And they're all the same. Like, they're all like chillers. They just want to adventure and ride. And like, it doesn't matter which part of the world you're in. You don't even have to speak the same language. Like, we all have this one beautiful thing in common that we can share and grow and like make better. So I think it just like is reassuring to me as a person. We're everywhere and we're growing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice to have you in the community, and thank you for putting your voice out there, because like I was saying, I mean, we need people to enter into conversations and not just ones that are like one sentence, I don't know,
One up each other.
internet score or whatever it is.
Yeah, totally. And then just like come from a place of love. I think like I wasn't trying to be critical of everyone being shitty or race promoters sucking. It was just like, let's just come from a place of love and value our community and just put a pause on it for now. It's not like I'm asking people to stop racing forever, it's just a little while.
Push a pause. I mean, yeah. I can't disagree. I don't see the value in racing. Personally, I mean, again, I'm not a racer, but I don't personally get it,
Yeah.
Like, how is that a priority
I don't
to be
get it
doing
either.
that?
Yeah.
I think there's plenty of things you can do to ride your bike, and everybody seems to be like okay with it. Like, there's lots of ways to go outside and ride your bike, and if you need to race, there's Strava KOMs that are just like waiting for you to go out there and show the world how awesome you are. That's what matters, man. Strava KOMs, the new Panda racing going down now. All right, well, you mentioned a chiller vibe. Your Instagram is Chiller Whale.
Yeah. _chiller_whale.
So people can follow along and stay up to date. Do you have more plans to like writing more papers, or is it just like if you feel empowered or impassioned to do so?
That was my first time ever writing. Or actually, no, one of my friends is posting like a short follow-up about privilege in general, not just white privilege.
Yeah, was that article you sent me or the writing little precursor to that?
Yeah. So just that, but I don't really have any plans to continue writing or anything. I just felt really strongly at that moment. But it was cool. Maybe I will. I don't know.
Hey. Yeah. I mean, if you do, you don't. I mean, whatever. I mean, you did what you felt like needed to be done at the time. I heard once a quote from an author that said, "Don't write a book unless you have to."
Honestly, I didn't want to write that article. Like, I didn't want to tell people that hard stuff.
Right.
But I had to. I was like, it was exploding out of me. Like, I had to.
Well, I could tell. I mean, earlier you were damn near in tears. Talking about it. I mean, this was something that ate at you, and you felt like needed to be said, and you said it. So kudos to you. We need more people to share their opinions so we can have a dialogue about things, whether they're easy or not, All right. Well, thank you. It's Monday and you have to go to work.
Yeah, I have to get back to it.
Your poor husband, is he quarantined up in the apartment?
Yeah, he's like typing
Or not
away.
quarantined, but working from home.
Yeah, but he's good. We're chill.
Cool.
We're chilling.
Well, congrats on the wedding during this
Gracias.
crazy time.
Thank
and
you.
hopefully we can see you out racing when it is safe and smart and appropriate to do so.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That is all I got for y'all beautiful people today. I hope you enjoyed this episode and you weren't too triggered. But if you were, please don't send hate mail to me or Cynthia. We're just talking, right? The world is complicated. So many people, different experiences, life experiences, opinions. Everybody's got one. And like I said at the beginning, what I think is so desperately needed is to have open-minded conversations that really seeks to understand other people's point of view and their perspectives. So I'm grateful for Cynthia for coming on the podcast and having one of those little bit harder conversations and having maybe an unpopular opinion to some. We're in a divided world. The truth is that maybe 50% of the people are going to agree with her wholeheartedly and 50% won't. It's a crazy, crazy world. But if we can just seek to understand and have good conversations without just seeking to have an emotional response, I think it'll go a long way in healing a lot of our woes as a society. So I applaud her and everybody else out there that's championing the cause to move us forward as a society, as a cycling community. And I am just so happy to be a part of it and to be in this position to be able to share stories like hers and many, many others. So much more to come. Can't wait. I love this shit. All right, well, stay safe. Don't throw hate. Spread the love. And if you're feeling triggered, feeling emotionally inclined to make a very powerful post on Facebook or other media outlets, maybe just put the keyboard down. Put your cell phone down. Snap in to those SPDs, grab a hold of the hoods, get your heart rate up, get out into nature, get lost, meditate, and get found. And all you got to do is go ride your damn bike.
You load up your bike, you ride away from home. You could be with your friends or you could be alone. You ride for a day or maybe more. You just love being in the great outdoors. Everything you need is strapped to your bars, including that new pillow you got from Santa Claus. And then you think, oh shit, to yourself. You left that super lightweight tent on the living room shelf. Bikes,